So you all must have heard of Mingyu Rinpoche when he famously disappeared for a few years. Turns out that he was actually up in Lapsi. Not initially. Initially, I think he wandered around. And then in time, he mostly, I think, spent his retreat up in Lapsi. So the public word is, of course, he has disappeared. Nobody knows. But I think many of our people knew where he was because Lapsi is a traditional Dragong area. So we have retreat centers up there. We have retreatants up there now. So anyway, so Rechungpa went into the back part of the cave and stayed there hiding while in a state of samadhi. So he entered a meditative state so that he didn't have to deal with this menacing spirits. The devas and ghosts, so these are often translated as the gods and the ghosts. So gods and ghosts, in just to point out, in the Buddhist context, it's not like gods good, ghosts bad. They're just two classes of beings, two classes of spirit beings. Relative to ghosts, gods have a good, generally good existence. They are powerful, whatever they wish for, generally they get very easily without much problems. The ghosts, on the other hand, often don't get what they want so easily. So within these two groups of beings, gods and ghosts, there are those who are benevolent mostly, and there are those who are malevolent mostly, and there are those who, like you and me, depending on the day, we can be nicer or not so nice. So gods and ghosts in the Buddhist context is not denoting automatically, oh, gods are good, ghosts are bad. So in this case, the gods, the devas, and the ghosts displayed a variety of fearsome forms to the Jitsun and rained down many weapons upon him. So in this case, both the gods and the ghosts, then like that Milarepa and Rechungpa was there. So they tried to chase them away, to intimidate them. They cried out many threatening things to Milarepa, like, whichever one of us seizes your flesh and blood will carry it away. And to that Milarepa sang this song, the following song. I supplicate the Guru Lords, grant your blessing that the harsh poison of the afflictions be pacified. O you Prithas, so he calls them Prithas. Prithas are another class of spirit beings, and these are normally, these refer to those beings born in this realm called the Pritha realm, which is the realm of the hungry spirits, the hungry ghosts. So they are an actual class of beings. So we talk about the 6 realms, right? So one of the realms is the realms of hungry spirits. So here in this case, Milarepa calls both the gods and the ghosts as hungry spirits. So maybe they are not literally prithas, but he's ascribing a certain quality to these gods and ghosts that are attacking him. So he calls them, you hungry spirits. So pitiful. Army of demons, it is due to karma, you're so deluded. When you are habituated to such a malevolent mind, you come to wish harm upon all sentient beings. So he's saying to them, like, you are hungry, essentially, because you have habituated this harmful mind. And this harmful mind This mind, this heart, this intention to cause harm comes from your feeling inadequate, your feeling of hungry, not just materially hungry, physically hungry, emotional hunger, spiritual hunger. So they are pretas essentially. And this state of being a preta, of being a hungry spirit, he says, is through your habituation of a mind that seeks to cause harm. And so now you wish to cause me harm, right? With a lust for eating flesh and blood, you take great delight in killing, cutting, and taking breath. You have taken births as preta demons. Now you commit negative deeds, and you'll be born in the hells. So he says, if you don't see, like your state of being right now will lead to even worse, a worse place, which is birth in the hell realms, which is a lower form of existence than even, hungry spirits and ghosts. Not thinking at all of the seed of liberation, you have no way to freedom. How pitiful. So basically, towards these beings, Milarepa is feeling a lot of compassion. And so having compassion for beings who cause harm to others, who cause harm to ourselves, it's not easy, having compassion, especially for those who cause harm to us, for those who inconvenience us, for us, that makes our life difficult. They don't even need to be spirits with horns and trident and tails and fangs. They just need to be people who are standing in our way to us achieving whatever we want to achieve. It's hard to feel compassion for them. And those who cause harm to others. It's hard to feel compassion for them. But this is what Milarepa genuinely feels for them. So then he says, I sit upon the Vajra seat of emptiness, this magical body sitting here. If you can take it away, I'll be happy with that. Magical here is meaning illusory. Illusory with the connotation of unstable, unreliable. He says, if you can take it away, you can have it. With the compassion of bodhicitta, I'm happy when the hordes of demons gather. So instead of exhibiting fear, and then in the face of fear, kind of go into a place of safety, which is what essentially the son, Rechungpa, did. Right? Rechungpa didn't want to deal with it. And he had enough power in his practice to enter this meditative state of samadhi where nothing can affect him. Yeah, so he did that, right? Now, of course, we would say, oh, look, he did that, he's so da-da-da, this and that, right? But actually, most of us don't even have his ability. But nonetheless, comparing him to Milarepa, then, of course, Milarepa's ability is greater. So Milarepa, us, we just escape into deluded states, not samadhi. In the face of difficulties, right? We escape into fear or depression or avoidance or Netflix or, YouTube, watching, cat videos. So we escape that way. If you have more spiritual strength, you can be like Rechungpa, escaping into samadhi, which is this impenetrable fortress of the mind. But that, in comparison to what Milarepa is doing, is still not ideal. because eventually you have to come out of that fortress. And then when you come out of that fortress, then what? Well, then all the trouble is still there waiting for you, right? So Milarepa had the power. So the power of his compassion. Then here he says, I sit upon this Vajra seat of emptiness. So emptiness, as I was actually sharing this morning at this cleansing smoke offering practice, when we sit, right, literally sit in meditation, basically like two qualities of mind, at least that's what I tend to emphasize, that there are two qualities of mind that we should seek to cultivate, to encourage, to habituate, right? Just like he uses this word habituating, because meditation is basically a process of habituating, getting used to, again and again and again and again. So there's two qualities of mind. One quality is the quality of being stable and unmoving. So the mind should not move so easily. The heart should not move so easily. Now that takes time, to build up that kind of strength, that kind of weight, weightiness, so that the mind doesn't move so easily, the heart doesn't move so easily. It has weight, it has strength. The other quality of mind to also develop, to cultivate, is this brightness, poetically, brightness of mind. So there we need an awareness that is not blocked, an awareness that is clear and brilliant, radiant, with no confusion, no obstacles, no veils covering it. So these are those two qualities of the mind. And this then corresponds to the more technical terms of emptiness and clarity. It's not often identified so clearly that actually the ability, right, for the mind to not move, to be immovable, actually comes from having cultivated emptiness. And so I'm glad, nicely here, Milarepa states it. I sit upon the Vajra seat. Vajra means immovable, indestructible. Vajra seat of what? Vajra seat of emptiness. So what does he mean, Right? It means that when you have, like, to whatever degree of understanding that we have, right, on this topic of emptiness, which is not nothingness, but emptiness is talking about that there is no intrinsic, unchanging thing anywhere. In a way, you could say it's talking about impermanence, a recognition of change, impermanence, instability, taken to its full kind of conclusion, is what we call emptiness, where there is no, technical term, inherent existence. Now, inherent existence doesn't exist in any case anywhere. It's an impossible thing to exist. But what is possible is our grasping at a facsimile of that. And since what we grasp onto is a facsimile of something permanent, then without fail, that will lead to suffering. Because when it changes, then we suffer, as in we're not happy. Wait, why did it change? I thought it's reliable. I thought it's uh, it's eternally like that. I thought I have control of it, you know. But the more you understand impermanence, the more you understand emptiness, ironically, the more you become immovable. Yeah, so there's a tension here, you know. And if you are being a logician or a philosopher, you'll say, wait, right? You're contradicting yourself. Immovable, indestructible, and then here you talk about emptiness and you talk about impermanence. In fact, they are the same thing. How do you become immovable, meaning unaffected? How do you become unmoving? By training in understanding. Flux, change, impermanence, and therefore emptiness. So that means, you know, whatever conditions arise that then normally produces whatever mental states that arise, right? Milarepa could see that they are all unreal, illusory. And so in that way, he doesn't move. He isn't affected. See, when we like try to get good at meditating, right? You take a course and then they give you this, they give you like tips, you know, like try this, try that, you know, count your breaths, count your out breath, count your in breath, focus on an object, a pebble or a flame or this or that. Yes, all those tips can be helpful. But they don't work so well if you don't develop some understanding, some insight into what is it that moves? What is it that gets distracted? What is the nature of distractions? So the more we lean in that direction, then we don't need, you know, so many tricks and tips on how to let the mind just be present here. Another way to talk about, you know, how to achieve this kind of sitting upon the Vajra seat of emptiness, right? As Milarepa calls it, sitting on this Vajra seat of emptiness. How can you sit on this Vajra seat of emptiness? One way to look at this, to answer this, is you resolve in your mind, in your heart. I'm not going to come under the influence of the 8 worldly concerns, the 8 winds. Meaning, whether pain or pleasure turn up, you're not going to get turned around. You're not going to get dragged around by the experience of pain or pleasure. Whether gain or loss turns up, you're not going to be dragged around by gain and loss. The experience of gain and loss. Whether the experience of praise or the experience of blame turns up, you're determined not to be moved by them. Whether the experience of fame or infamy turns up, you resolve not to be moved, not to be concerned about them. Instead, you let your focus, your concern be anchored on what we call bodhicitta, which he talks about here. with the compassion of bodhicitta. Now, bodhicitta, as I've said many times, is not just compassion, even though here and there, it might sound like, oh, you're talking about compassion. No, those are two different words. Bodhicitta is the determination, the intention, the vow, the aspiration to achieve the state of Buddha for the benefit of beings, for the sake of all beings. And that's bodhicitta. Then what is compassion then? Well, compassion and love are the fuel of bodhicitta. So without compassion and love, there's no bodhicitta to talk about. But bodhicitta itself is more than just love and compassion. Yeah. So when we are able, so when we make a resolve like these 8 worldly concerns, we are not going to be moved by them. We're not going to be blown around, pushed around by them. Instead, we are going to anchor ourselves in bodhicitta. Then, come what may come, it doesn't affect us. So here, Milarepa says, so this illusory body sitting here, if you can, yeah, go ahead, take it away. So in fact, you troublemakers, I'm glad to see you. Having sung that, the Jitsun rested in the equipoise, in the samadhi of the totality of water. After a moment, even more demons came and gathered. So Milarepa entered into a particular state of mind called resting in the samadhi of the totality of water. A mysterious sounding thing, Anyway, it's saying, he after giving that very brief teaching statement, he pulled his mind in and he rested in that state. Then more of these malevolent forces came, and one of them say, wait, where did he go? So apparently they can't see him, One of the demons replied, he's sitting on the other side of the river, there. Then when the demons threw a stone, the Jitsun appeared in person and said, here I am. And so when he entered this samadhi, basically, he disappeared. And so then some was like, where did he go? And some said, well, he must be on the other side of the river. And then when they threw a stone, he appeared, right? The demons became frightened and ran away. The demons later returned and again did all kinds of magic, but they could not touch Milarepa. The devas and ghosts said, this time, let's all make friends. So they tried to intimidate, they tried to chase him away, and they could not do that. So they said, okay, let's be friends. Then in the state of great compassion, the Jitsun sang this song of realization. Listen well now, all you spirits, you army of ghosts with negative karma, with bad karma and negativity, you bring suffering upon yourself. All phenomenal existence arises as dharmakaya for me. So you band of demons are a great ornament. So he's saying, all you are doing by wanting to harm me is not doing anything that can harm me. Because I already have arrived at the state, at the understanding, at the stable recognition that everything is just a display of the Dharmakaya. And the Dharmakaya is the body of reality. And the body of reality is the reality that nothing happens. That's one way to put it. nothing truly happens. He says, so I remain in that state. Then, in that state, then, anything and everything that appears is like a decoration for me. It's like an ornament that I wear. But on your end of things, your malevolence, your evil intent, your causing harm will definitely ripen as negative karma. And so you are only bringing suffering to yourself and nobody else. Now listen well, you devas and ghosts, you gods and ghosts. If you seek refuge in the three precious jewels, you'll find unmistaken, excellent abodes. If you don't take flesh and blood for your food, you'll attain the freedom of the higher realms. If you abandon harming beings, then you'll quickly take hold of the path to enlightenment. If you can abandon non-virtuous actions, you'll enter the teachings of the Buddha. Enter the teachings of the Buddha means, you actually embark on practicing the path, which is to abandon the non-virtuous actions. If you can practice the 10 virtuous actions, then you have understood the Guru's key instruction. The 10 virtuous actions is the opposite of the 10 non-virtuous. The 10 non-virtuous is killing. So then the opposite of that is supporting and protecting life. Stealing is the non-virtue. Then the opposite of that is to practice giving, generosity. The third is sexual misconduct, adultery, betraying trust. The opposite of that is to be free from that kind of desire whereby you use others. So on and so forth. You do the. That is the key instruction. If you can keep the 10 virtuous actions and give up the 10 non-virtuous. If you can pacify the confusion of the 3 gates, gates is body, speech, and mind. So on the physical level, on the verbal level, on the mental, emotional level, if you can clear confusion from those 3 levels, then you enter the ranks of the Vidyadharas. The Vidyadharas are these like accomplished beings in the Vajrayana context. Vidyadharas, Vidya is knowledge, and Dhara is holders of knowledge, holders of esoteric knowledge. If you can make the commitments of holding the vows, then we all here can be good friends. If you can keep the vows of Samaya, then I shall accept you as my students. So the first of this is, if you can keep the commitments of holding the vows of not harming, then we can be friends. And furthermore, if you want to be my student, then you have to be able to keep your commitment to me. So this is part of, Vajrayana. Part of Vajrayana practice is keeping Samaya. In the broadest way of understanding Samaya is a way that one of the teachers of our Drigum Kagyu lineage, Gajen Rinpoche, very much, I think very skillfully, expresses it as he says, Samaya is basically love. Love in the sense of affection and care. Love. So he says Samaya, at the root of Samaya is love. Then, of course, Samaya, there is a different, Sanskrit word for love. So he's not translating Samaya. Samaya literally means commitment. But he says that commitment needs to be based on love. And the context of Samaya is, in Vajrayana, it's the commitment between teachers and students. And so what Gajendra Rinpoche is saying is, but that commitment cannot be based on fear, cannot be based on manipulation, cannot be based on threats, cannot be based on guilt, which is actually, frankly, a lot of times when this word Samaya is used in Tibetan Vajrayana context, a lot of times it's based on all those things. Fear, control, intimidation, manipulation. Whether from quote-unquote senior students, whether knowingly or unknowingly exerting their power over new students. Oh, Samaya, Samaya. Oh, you got to keep your Samaya. You have to, you're going to be breaking your Samayas, Or if you don't come to this, you're breaking your Samaya. If you do that, you're breaking your Samaya, blah, 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 things like that. Knowingly or unknowingly, that happens. And so there's a lot of fear and tightness and, oh, if you do this, you will cause our guru to die. People say that, really. That you've broken your Samaya with our guru. So now you're contributing to his death. I mean, there are statements like that, in the Tantras, but they are to be properly interpreted and understood. There are statements like, if you break your Samaya, you'll burn in Vajra hell. They are, I cannot pretend that, oh, no, no such thing. No, there are statements like this in the text, in the Tantras. But again, it needs to be properly understood. And I think, again, going to how Gajendra Rinpoche puts it, he says, but it has to be based on love. So yes, if the love, if the care is there, right, then what is talking about is that if you break that love, if you break that trust, it's painful. And that's how you end up in Vajra hell. What after all is hell? It's, right, excruciating pain. So if you break that bond, that commitment with your teacher or with your students, then pain is involved for everyone. So actually this issue of Samaya, it's binding on both ends. Again, often you hear about Samaya as if the teacher's Samaya is automatically pure and intact, and if any damage is going to come, it's the students who's going to damage it. But Kyopa Jitensungman, founder of Dribung Kagyu, he makes the statement, he says, Samaya is upheld on both sides. And so you have to, so it is something, right, that can only arise when both sides are ready to hold this bond. And then the other thing is like, again, people say, oh, you're breaking your Samaya, you're breaking your Samaya. Actually, it's not so easy to break your Samaya. Why? Because you cannot break what you don't have. You cannot break what you don't have.
What does that mean?
You cannot break what you don't have. How can you break a Samaya when you don't have that Samaya? How can you break a bond with a teacher when all you have done is randomly turn up at some teaching that they're giving, or even attended an empowerment because your friend says, hey, this is really great, let's go, right? But often you'll hear people say, oh, you went to the empowerment, you have a Samaya, you're going to break a Samaya if you don't come next week. It's like, no, there is no connection, really. You can't break it so easily if there isn't, then often, right? Like these big things, the teacher don't even know that you exist there as you. So there's no samaya there.
Well, that that reminds me, when I went to the 10-day Kala Chakra in DC,
Mhm.
and a bunch of Kentrell's people came, and one of my best friends was there, and she said she just kept on about, well, I don't know if I should do the empowerment. Well, I don't know if I should do, because she wasn't going to keep her Samaya.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, I am.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a lot of, I think, misunderstanding and fear about samaya,
Yeah.
right? So yes, samaya means commitment. Samaya means bond. And here, Milarepa says, so if you can keep the samayas, then I will accept you as my student. So then that also shows, like, yes, Milarepa is being careful. Sometimes students don't understand, I mean, all the time, actually, I think this is part of like Dharma kind of being traded, being commodified, like the other commodities that we commodify. So when people turn out at the Dharma center, they expect people like me, the teacher, to give them whatever they want. They're like, well, I put my money in the donation box, so now you need to be my teacher. And that's not how it works. So Milarepa very bluntly say to the ghost, yeah, we can be friends. Sure. And the basis of that friendship is do not cause harm. So that's what the vows are about, right? So because I don't like to cause harm, I'm committed to not causing harm. If I'm going to be friends with you, that has to be the baseline of our friendship. So that's like, so you could go to EBS, you can all be friends, but it has to be based on that understanding. Like we are all committed to not causing harm. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect, we will still cause harm, knowingly or unknowingly, because, there's still a lot of stuff to work through. Yeah. So we are still going to, knowingly, unknowingly step on each other's toes, right? But our commitment is not cause harm, which is what this holding of the vows, commitment of holding the vows is really talking about. It says, if we can do that, then we can be friends. But if you want to be more than friends, if you want to be my student, then there are commitments that we have to keep. And if you can't keep those commitments, then we cannot have this teacher-student thing. And that is not to be rushed. Again, if you hang out in Tibetan Vajrayana circles, there's tremendous kind of pressure to find your teacher, find your teacher, find your teacher. I think that's really unhealthy. No, practice Dharma. Become a friend with your mind and watch your mind and do that work, Do that work. Then whatever teacher you need, whatever teacher that will be beneficial to you, will turn up. You don't find your teacher by running around looking for one. You don't find your teacher by putting up ads, There is no, like dating service, for your teacher. And if there are, then you are in trouble because you're going to end up with charlatans. Then there are two types of charlatans, the charlatans who know that they are charlatans and the charlatans who don't know that they're charlatans. I'm not sure which is worse. So best not to walk around with a sign, looking for teacher, looking for teacher, looking for teacher. No. Know that ultimately, the inner teacher. But the inner teacher, of course, we don't have such good access to right now. The line is unclear, fuzzy. So then whatever external teacher can turn up, come by, you accept that to help you discover the inner teacher, which is, really what Milarepa is talking about here. So here it says, so he sang this, and then with faith, these gods and ghosts confessed their harmful actions and said, now we will be subjects of your command. Please teach us the Dharma. So now he says, these ghosts and gods actually dare make a commitment and say, yes, we will form a commitment with you. So then your words will be our command. We'll take them as command. The Jisan transmitted the refuge and bodhicitta vows to them and explained the dharma of karma, the dharma of cause and effect. All of the spirits then offered their life force to Milarepa, vowed to keep their commitments, and left.
What does that mean that they offered the life force?
Here it means pledging their entire life to him. Luckily, he's not going to abuse it. Hard to meet teachers like this, where you can safely offer your life to them. It would be so fortunate, when we meet someone like that, condition like that. But again, don't want to say so much until, again, it contributes to the unhealthy, where am I going to find someone like this? Where am I going to? No, that's not how it works. Just practice the Dharma, then, one lifetime later, 10 lifetimes later, 100 lifetimes later, doesn't matter. Where you'll be ready to offer your life force, to someone like Milarepa. And it is someone like Milarepa, they're not going to abuse what you have offered to them. They'll really take care of you.
Dr. Lye, I've
Mhm.
got to go. I'm going to EBS to do the 12-step meeting.
Oh, okay. Ta-ta.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye. It's great to see
Yeah,
you.
we're going to end soon too. So
Okay.
Hi, Karen.
Bye, Karen.
Hi, Karen.
oh, now we'll give the real secret. Yeah, so they so Milarepa explained to them, especially cause and effect, karma. Cause and effect is the general principles of cause and effect, simple enough. As you sow, so shall you reap, right? Plant an apple seed, get an apple tree. Plant a mango seed, get a mango seed. General principles are simple enough, easy enough. But the full extent of karma, it says, is an area of knowledge. It's a type of knowledge that is only accessible to a complete and perfect Buddha. Why? Because all the intricacies of, what sorts of actions need what kind of contributing factors to give rise to what kind of situations that can then produce what kind of side effects, only available to complete and perfect Buddhists. In fact, it's the content of Buddha wisdom is to see completely the workings of karma. So karma, the teachings of karma, is not at all a kind of preliminary teaching. Sometimes practitioners get carried away. They say, oh, karma is just the ABC, Then there is like the great perfection. Then there's the great seal, Mahamudra, Dzogchen, blah, blah, blah. Madhyamaka, the middle way philosophy of Nagarjuna, this profound, emptiness, the four impossible positions and the refutations and all of that, we think that, oh, this is like the real, amazing things. Actually, no, the real content of Buddha wisdom is seeing completely the workings of karma. That's wisdom. So Milarepa taught them the beginnings of understanding karma. He says, so understand those basic principles of karma, now start working on removing the afflicted minds, states of mind, purifying them, overcoming them. Then as you do more and more of that, this more profound wisdom will grow stronger and stronger and stronger and brighter and brighter and brighter. Questions, comments?
Do you think that conceiving of karma as a type of energy is a valuable way to think in terms of what it might be in our world?
Say more about energy, because it depends what you mean by that.
Well, the idea of reap what you sow, that sounds right to me. But what would be the mechanics of that? It would be some type of contribution, perhaps, of positive energy into, and this is actually a question I have had for you for a while, an idea of a karma field. It is like some type of energy field that we contribute to all the time with our lives in either positive or negative ways, or is that too general and not specific enough?
No, it's not too general, but it's not you don't find that expression in the Buddhist texts. Speaking of karma as an energy field, but it's not necessarily contradicting what the Buddha said about karma. I think what the Buddha said about karma tends to be more on the very pragmatic, very practical level. So he didn't talk about the mechanics of how, whether it's an energy field, whether it's universal. He emphasizes that karma is basically actions carried out with intentions. Yeah, so he was more interested in showing us the nuts and bolts on the individual level.
Okay, well, even on the individual level, we're constantly contributing into it through our actions, and it is
but it's not so much
us.
Contributing like to some bank over there, but that every action that we take, mental, physical, mental, emotional, physical, and verbal, plants a seed. So that's the analogy, that he uses. Just like you could say energy field is an analogy, right? It's a way of understanding, right? So the analogy that he uses were agricultural analogy. So maybe even field, right? When you say energy field, maybe that's what you mean. We have to talk more for me to understand. But basically, Buddha uses an agricultural examples because his society was agricultural. So he says it's like planting seeds. And these seeds, when you plant them, they're going to ripen. And when you ripen, you are the one that will have to eat the fruits of what ripens.
Right, it's that two-way aspect of it that I think can be confusing.
In what way?
Well, because we contribute to it and it contributes to us. So
or it doesn't have any volition or intention. So in that sense, it's not it out there. So we create a certain pattern, right? By habituating, for example, seeds of happiness. Then it ripens, these seeds ripen into fruits of happiness. Then when you're eating these fruits of happiness, what then you're predisposed to do is, hey, you're eating these fruits of happiness. Then what do you end up when you're done eating the fruits of happiness? You have seeds of happiness. Then you plant seeds of happiness. Likewise, if you plant, seeds of suffering, then they ripen as suffering, fruits of suffering. Then as you're eating your fruit of suffering and suffering away, it's not like you cannot find seeds of happiness to plant, but what's most readily available are the seeds of suffering. Then you'll continue to plant seeds of suffering. So this is the karmic principle of like produces like. If you spend time with A, likely you will continue to be in an A environment. If you spend time in the B environment, likely you'll continue to be in a B environment. Yeah. Then it gets very complex. Such as, we have said things like, I'm sure you've heard of how they say, like a butterfly flutters its wings here, a tsunami happens somewhere. Now, we don't want to be paranoid about our actions, so that, even to flutter a wing, you're like, oh, am I causing a tsunami somewhere? That I think that idea is just to remind us, like, the exact workings can be so hard for us to see. But no need to be concerned about that, because the Buddha says intentionality of actions chiefly determines the result that these actions are going to bear fruit. So intentionality is something that we can attend to now. So even if I don't know, right, fluttering my wing now is going to cause a tsunami there or not, my intention behind fluttering this wing can protect and determine whether this fluttering of this wing is going to cause a tsunami or is going to produce a cooling breeze, to someone suffering a heat stroke. Intentionality, the Buddha says, is the chief determinant of how the seed is going to ripen. So that we can attend to. Intention.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's how you can change it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's dynamic.
Yeah,
we
so
are
cause and
predisposed.
effect.
We are predisposed to behave a certain way, to like certain things, to dislike certain things, but everything can be changed. Yeah. So the Buddha's teachings on karma is principally a call to act, and a call to act skillfully. Whenever we let our understanding of karma lead to us feeling incapacitated, leading to us feeling we cannot do anything, that is a very good indication we have misunderstood this teaching on karma. Because karma, or at least the way the Buddha taught it, is always about the possibility of change and changing for the better.
I've heard the emptiness described as potential, which just fits perfectly into what you just said.
Yes, one of the implications of emptiness is potential. Now, there are other aspects of the teaching of emptiness where the word itself, empty, is useful. Empty is, not a very comfortable word. I think that it's deliberate that the Buddha chose that word. It has a function to play. But one of the implications of emptiness is, potential. So nothing is stuck. So we don't have to be stuck. If we are stuck, it's because we have stubbornly held on to that which is not real. So both good news and bad news there, right? You're like, dang it, it's me. That's the bad news. Good news, well, dang it, it's you. So you can do something about it.
I like it. Thank you so much.
Sure. So we will end today. And good to see all of you. And so let's start planning for end of July. It's been, 2-3 years since actually I came, right when the pandemic was starting to become like, wait, what is this thing? We actually got a retreat in.
Yeah, right in February, I think.
Yeah, I was coming back from Mexico, I think. I changed my flights and turned up. And it wasn't officially an EBS event, right? I think it was a renegade program at Casey's, right?
Yeah, the ritual implements.
Yeah. It was a renegade program.
It was an EBS program, but it was.
It was EBS.
Yeah, except that all the leadership of EBS was there, more or less.
Mainly for our group, I think.
Yeah.
Right. It's the leadership planning to overthrow the leadership in the renegade program that we had. Like, how can we give this power away to somebody else? Anyway, good to see everyone, and you all have a good rest of the weekend, and happy spring. And if all goes well, I'll see you all next Sunday.
Great. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Hi, everybody.